Aston Martin will be the leading midfield team in 2023. Hello YouTube, and welcome back to the F1 Unchained channel. Today, we're talking about Aston Martin and how I think in 2023, they will be leading the midfield. By leading, I mean they will be ahead, not by a good margin, but they will be there. They will be competing with McLaren and with Alpine. I still think the top three teams of this year will be ahead, but Aston is taking a big jump up. They're probably going to finish 6th or 7th this year, but I think next year they're either finishing 4th, maybe 5th, but I'm saying 4th. That's what I'm saying with this video, and I think it's for 3 specific reasons. One of the reasons being Fernando Alonso. Second, the factory being built and being finished in January. The third is the engineers that they've hired from both Mercedes and from Red Bull and Dan Fallows himself. Let's start with the first point. So Fernando Alonso to join in 2023 for that Aston Martin team. What does this mean for the team? It means that they got to be on their best behavior, because Fernando is nobody to be messed with. We saw him in McLaren. We've seen him in Alpine now, actually showing off how he really feels about the team and how stuff has really gone south considering these engine problems that they're having and how many points he really could have had if it wasn't for these engine problems. Now, if we look at a team like Aston Martin, they're the only team in the grid that have actually not had any penalties when it came to their engines. Their engine blew up in Monza. I'm going to take a guess that it was because they were overexerting the energy in Monza, and that engine is already pretty weak considering the aero on that car is made for more corner-based circuits and not really a straight line like Monza, where the Red Bull is insane and where the Alpine was actually insane too. But the Alpine didn't even finish in points in Monza. I think Fernando is going to like the step that he's taking. It's not kind of like a step in reverse with what happened with McLaren last time. In my opinion, what's been happening at Alpine, that car is great and the potential for it is great, but the reliability for the past, I want to even say for the past 10 years now, has been one of the worst reliabilities. Since 06, 07, where he won with Renault, I think that that car has been not been able to actually compete with the top dogs while also losing its reliability and dropping performance. This has to do a lot with the philosophy in the team, and I don't think that that has anything to do actually with the new team members that are coming and how those technical directors are over there and the engineers and so on. I think Aston is pushing in a different direction, and with the help of Mercedes like they've been having, I think that this team will keep pushing. Now, he's going to, like I said, Fernando's going to be there for one big reason. And first of all, he's still a top 5 driver on the grid, if not top 3. I can argue that the only people that might be better than him are Verstappen and Lewis because they're younger and they're amazing. Fernando can probably compete with the both of them if you give him an even car. Whatever car you put this guy in, he can compete. That's who Fernando Alonso is. So that will be a big factor as to why they will lead the top of the midfield and keep improving. Point 2, I talked about the factory being built by January. Now, the car is not being built in the same wind tunnel as we see for 2023 because the factory itself is not done, but will they start putting it into the wind tunnel by the time that the season starts? Of course. As soon as that factory is done, the car will be in the wind tunnel in the newer factory with the upgraded wind tunnel, better computer systems, better metrics, better everything. That will play a factor in how their development goes throughout the season. Now, it's important that they make a car that bangs in the beginning. From all the reports that I've been hearing, the car is doing great. Mercedes engineers and Red Bull engineers that were at those teams in the past that are now together at Aston Martin are working really well together. Now, that's important because I don't think Red Bull and Mercedes engineers like each other very much considering the fights they've been having. So it is important that they are working well together and that they are making a car that can be developed to be just as amazing as something at Mercedes or at Red Bull. The factory being made helps with the car, the drivers themselves, the data, everything included. It just helps with the overall team status in comparison to where they are at now. If we look at Force India, they've been working with one of the oldest wind tunnels. They're one of the oldest teams on the grid when it comes to like the engineers that have been there, the staff. They have kept that. They were up in top 4, top 3 sometimes for a long period of time with the little amount of stuff that they've had. Now, adaptation obviously takes like a longer time, so they weren't good last year. They're not that great this year either. The car's improved big time, and I could argue that they're probably fighting with the Alpine and McLaren. I still think that the Alpine and McLaren edge them out by a little bit, but the drivers make the difference here. Now, Lando has been a beast in McLaren, and same with Fernando, but Ocon and Daniel have been getting beat by both Lance and Vettel for a good amount of races now. Coda, if it wasn't for the problem that ended up happening for Vettel with that pit stop, I would argue that they would probably be ahead. So, McLaren doesn't have that big factory yet. Alpine does, but Alpine's had that factory for years. 2 years have gone by, 2021, 2022. They haven't had the factory. Teams are still developing into that, wow, we finally have money. We're finally getting a factory. We're finally a big team now. So it will take time. But I do think the next year will be a big step for them. And I think that that team will genuinely start adapting itself into the bigger team that it is. My last point that I wanted to make was Dan Fallows himself. Well, if we look at the upgrades that have happened this year and the ones that have really made the big difference, let's just look at the rear wing that Dan Fallows himself created. That in itself was a huge upgrade that came to the Aston Martin. Every time they have that wing on, they're arguably in the points. Now, am I saying it's giving them 8/10? No. But he also made the floor just recently, which allowed them to be competitive in Japan, in Coda. In Mexico, I would argue that they did better than they would have done without that floor. Every upgrade that has came from Dan Fallows has worked on a car that he did not construct himself. This was a car made by the past aero engineer. And it's a concept that he's not even very familiar with, but he has still improved it to what he knows is best. Now, I really want to see what Dan Fallows himself can construct with the car that he is constructing from the scratch. It will play a huge difference in comparison to what we have now. This guy is the real deal. He's been working on their Adrian Newey. Adrian Newey just made that rocket ship of a car this year. Now I'm telling you, that Aston will be very competitive in 2023. My hopes are up high. I genuinely think Fernando is going to have a competitive car to compete with. A couple of podiums might be in the spice. Are they going to win yet? It would be a long shot to say they're going to win in a convincing way if it's not for crashes and just bad stuff happening. I genuinely think that this Aston car is going to be great, and I'd love to hear what you guys think too. Will Aston be competitive? Will they not be down towards the bottom end? Will they be within a second of the top 3 teams? Let me know what you guys think. This is my Aston Martin video. How they're going to do in 2023. I think they're going to bang, so I want to hear your guys' opinion. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like on the video and subscribe, please. It would mean the world to me. So peace.